Welcome, guys, back to the Grateful Living podcast. I am here with Ado Kawuba. Okay. He is the founder of DPG, a premier integrated marketing, promotions, and events activation company that specializes in entertainment and hospitality. Ado, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, Arnie, thank you, brother. It's always a pleasure to kind of rekindle the fire, if for lack of better words. So, thank you for having me.
Awesome, thank you. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's set the scene of where you born, where you grew up, your family,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
what type of kid you were, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was born in Uganda. I left there when I was 2 years old, and my mother actually, worked for the United Nations, where she took a job in the Netherlands, and so I followed suit there, and went to school there from 2 to 7 years old, and then actually migrated um, over to the States, from seven till now, obviously. And ever since then, coming to the States, I've always been going to boarding schools, and from there, went to BC. But growing up as like an immigrant to this country, it's always been a struggle, kind of getting used to and acclimated to the culture, and really immersing myself. But I was very lucky enough to kind of do that through sport, right? Soccer specifically, um, where I was able to kind of connect, with different people, and through that has kind of allowed me to really have some of my best friends and learn so much about the world, travel, and all these different things that sport has provided me throughout my life. So
Wait, hold on. So 2 to 7, where were you?
2 to 7, I went to the Netherlands.
Netherlands.
Yep.
Do you remember much about that?
I mean, I remember the soccer. I remember the food being really good, and I played for a junior academy called Ajax. And there they take it, very, very, very serious, where they kind of make you kind of commit to a path that you want to go, the school route, or the playing route. And obviously my mother was very keen on me having an education, and so was I. So coming to the United States to continue that path, to get arguably some of the best education around the world. I know there's a lot of other places that provide top class education, but coming here, and going to the school systems here, and kind of furthering my English, because definitely in the Netherlands, it's definitely not it's based off a British schooling
Yeah.
system. So
Do you, I mean, I don't know how much you remember, but do you remember, like, I assume there weren't a lot of people of color in the Netherlands. I mean, I don't know how much you remember about that
yeah,
time. Were you aware of that as a young kid?
I when you're playing sports, I always keep referring to it as sport, but
Yeah.
um, you honestly sometimes forget about color, right? Because you look at the soccer ball, it's white and black, and you just think about getting that ball in the back of the opponent's net, right? So no matter who you're playing with, sometimes you're blinded, within like the white lines. But sometimes, if now looking back on it, yes, like I realized that like most of my teammates were, white, kids, which was totally fine. I never realized it when I was, 2 to 7 years
Yeah.
old, or 7 years old when I was playing. But yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, yeah, I was definitely surrounded by mainly, white folks.
And then at 7, you moved to Massachusetts?
Yeah, so I moved to Everett, Massachusetts first. It was a very small like stint there. I would say probably like even a month, and then moved over to Watertown, Massachusetts, where my family has been
Yeah.
ever since.
Gotcha. How was that? Was there a big culture difference? I mean, obviously, even like sports like football are, obviously a lot bigger here than soccer. Uh,
Yeah,
like soccer in Europe is huge. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's we call football soccer over there, right? It's
yeah,
soccer.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
so definitely that was one major switch. But adjustment. But it's the culture, the food, the how people communicate with one another, and how willingness people are like the willingness for people to help one another here is definitely a lot more present and than when I was in the Netherlands. So it definitely took some time to get adjusted, but again, playing sports was just a very easy transition to kind of break into those barriers, if you want to call them that.
Yeah. So did you start? Okay, so you were playing soccer back in the Netherlands. Were you
Mhm.
playing any other sports in the U.S. outside of soccer?
Through school, most of the schools I attended always required you to play three sports, right? So one in the fall, in the winter. Always loved basketball. I'm not sure why soccer players always love or gravitate to basketball players and the game. So I was always an avid basketball fan. Loved the Lakers, loved Kobe Bryant. So I played basketball in the winter, and in the spring was just a natural thing to do um, track. But then also one year did lacrosse, which was probably one of the funnest, sports I've ever played, to be honest.
Yeah. At that time, at that age, were you at all, I mean, even up to your high school years, were you at all introduced to entrepreneurship? Is that something you had seen?
No, I mean, to be honest with you, my brother Adrian, who's an entrepreneur at heart, he was really the first person that I think introduced my family to it. I've always been uh, not taught, but like steered in the direction that hey, like after school, right, is we go get a job, the traditional job, 9 to 5, and obviously because we weren't exposed to the idea of entrepreneurship. So um, yeah, my brother was really the first person to kind of dip his toe into it and go, all into it. And I think that trickled down to me, him being such a big influence in my life. And then obviously to now my mother and father, who also has, his own, gig going on as well.
Were you, did you ever go back to Uganda, or how are you connected with your family there, through phone calls?
Yeah, yeah, definitely through phone calls. I haven't, been back as much as I would like to. I left when I was so young, so I don't really have a ton of memories,
Yeah.
as you could probably assume. Excuse me. So I call, obviously, family is a big part of who I am, and as we grew up. So I definitely call, I keep in touch. A lot of my aunts, uncles, and even like grandparents are definitely back there, and I definitely check in daily. We have WhatsApp groups, so
Yeah, yeah.
which is always nice.
All right. So also talk to me about high school, and what was your mindset, and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, high school was interesting because I went to a, junior boarding school from fifth grade, fifth grade till ninth grade, right? Which essentially just prepared you for prep school. So I did that, and then when I got to Wolverhampton Monson Academy, was a very well known soccer kind of powerhouse was within the prep school organization, so in New England. So I went there, and definitely was a learning curve because that year was, the next 2 years was really a rebuilding year. So obviously the focus was to go there for school, right, and enhance my um, chance to get into a school like a Boston College or some of the other schools I was very fortunate enough to have recruiting me. So I definitely, leveraged that experience in order to kind of get to the next step in college wise.
At what point did you know, like, hey, like, listen, I'm pretty good at this soccer thing?
You know, I never realized, to be honest, like it my coach, which to this day I adore that dude. He coached me all the way. I think I was 10,
Yeah.
right? All the way through, and I had him as a college coach. He always told me to focus on what I could control, right? Like my work ethic, practicing being the best player I can be every single day. And I think it was really until like junior year, I was kind of a late bloomer.
Yeah.
It was until junior year where I started receiving more notice, and then I think at that point I realized, okay, well, I belong at the level that I'm kind of attracting attention at. So
Yeah.
that was definitely the probably the year that I realized.
That's awesome. How did you come to um, choose BC? What was the recruiting process like? What were your factors in deciding?
Yeah, I think factors for me was, not too far away from home. Obviously, that's
Yeah.
being a,
Yeah.
local kid, Watertown. Also, when you're 10 years old and going through a club team, right, where your coach at that club team is the head coach of Boston College, right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
getting advice, and he understands what it takes to be at that collegiate level. So I was lucky enough to be around the campus all the time, go to all the camps and do all these different things. So it made the decision pretty easy. But in terms of just like the recruitment process, I honestly I loved it. I loved going out and being wanted, right? I think everyone loves that feeling, and going out and meeting these coaches, talking to the players, and I think it was really the top. I categorized it into the like top four schools that I was really thinking about attending, and at the end of the day, there's nothing better than staying home,
Yeah.
and playing for someone that I knew had watched me develop. I knew I definitely wanted to pursue that path, other than some of the other ones for sure.
When obviously there's some like if there's a high school soccer player now watching this, I mean, what are some pieces of advice that you would give him in terms of maybe he's a freshman or sophomore right now and he wants to play at that Division 1 level?
Hey, good question. Express yourself. Work extremely hard. Be the best player that you can be every single day. Control what you can control, and um, it sounds cliche, but like let the marbles land where they land, right? Like
Yeah.
the things that you can control are the things I just mentioned, and if you do those, right, like you will attract the attention that you deserve, right? It, I always say the people that are the most confident, they're not confident because they're arrogant, right? They're confident because they did the preparation,
Yeah.
right, in order to be at that stage. So that's honestly what I would tell kids to kind of fall back. Um, do the things that you need to do, and you'll get where you need to get. Um, so, and there's also a little bit of luck, right?
Yeah.
Who's watching in certain
Yeah.
games and all those different things. But if you worry about those core things, someone will notice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to me about BC and your journey there.
Best 4 years of my life. Definitely, I think you're a BC grad.
Yeah.
We were buddies in college, and
Yeah.
honestly, it's a very special place. It's the memories, the connections, the alumni is so strong. Look, like we're having conversation right now, but
Yeah.
through my time at BC, I've learned so much about myself that really has, allowed me to be the person I am today. And again, through sports, traveling, and just being involved in so many different things that BC has to offer. I honestly, obviously, you can tell I'm a bit speechless
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to kind of
Yeah.
describe like what it was like.
Yeah.
Honestly, people just need to experience it themselves, really.
Yeah. The people are incredible.
Yeah.
I guess in your even in at boarding school and high school, and then at BC, I mean, um, how aware were you that you were, an African American man? I mean, was it something that was brought to your attention a lot, or not really?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I as soon as I got to the States, right, and I think probably right when you can start really creating your own thoughts, right, I noticed, and I think that happened to me at Hillside,
Yeah.
where I faced my own fear of of instances, right, that African American males, females, or people of color, just in general, right, sometimes endure, right. But I think it started, yeah, definitely in fifth grade, and even more so evident, unfortunately, in college, and now in the real world, right. I think now those gated walls of college definitely shield you from the the real life experiences that are even more so evident when you leave, right, that campus. So yeah, I think fifth grade and now stepping into the real world, um, it's more present and more obvious than before.
Have you personally like faced anything blatantly crazy, within your life?
Yeah, I have, and you know I think just of recently, I've it's kind of a simple one, right? A friend of mine, was engaged in a conversation in her past, right, in high school, where she made some comments that I know aren't a representation of her, right? And so they came to surface, today, and they deeply, like, honestly, like, just saddened me and hurt, because like the person that you give so much and they give so much of the relationship, it creates a bad tint on them, right? But I understand that, like, that again isn't who she is, right? And you have to love, right? Like, you can't fight
Yeah.
love with hate. They don't, you know what I mean? They don't work together. So um, it took me a while, right? And it happened recently, and it took me a few days talking to my mom and talking to my brothers and just talking to different people to just kind of channel my frustration, but really then channel my frustration into, like, positivity, because we need allies, we need people to help us fight this battle, right? Like, the only way we can stand together is by correcting those mistakes, and through love, because ultimately, if she can now change another person's perspective that
Yeah.
maybe still thinks the way that she once thought, in 2014 in high school, um, that's how I believe we make
Yeah.
change, right? Because a conversation leads to another conversation, and it kind of spurs.
Talk to me about how you approach that. I mean, so did you have a private conversation with her, or how was?
Yeah, first it was, it just kind of hit me, and you just have to take a step back, because I'm sure, like any person, when something hits you, right, you're immediately angry. So you have to take a step back and make sure you don't do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing, right? So I needed time to really understand and process, like, why these things were being said, and I got them right, and it took me a few days, because I didn't want it to mull over for multiple days, because that was just adding more and more, like, frustration. So after talking to my mom and just hearing her perspective, and talking to friends, right, um, I just said, you know what, like, I know deep and down, I know this is not that person. So let me just get in front of it. Let me dig deeper, beyond just that pain and anger, and let me find a real solution. Because at the end of the day, right, this is bigger than just how I feel towards this person, right? We're talking about a whole community.
Yeah.
So we need to sometimes think about, like, selfishly, take yourself out of the equation, right? What's really the bigger goal here? And the bigger goal is to stand as a united front
Yeah.
of all people, right? In order to achieve equality for all people. So that's my thought process, and I knew that I needed to be, come out of what I thought was a big deal for just this level. There's a bigger deal that I'm striving for, which
Yeah.
is equality. So
This is this, I don't know how fair of a question this is. This is kind of a tough question to put on you, but um, for non blacks, non African Americans, um, what would be your advice to them on understanding, you know, the importance of, I guess, words and things like that of that nature, and you know, in general, with all of the things that are going on. Um, Obviously we've seen George Floyd's death, but I mean, there have been numerous incidents within the last month. Um, so, I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's a deep question, and I want to preface and say that I certainly don't have all the answers, right? I'm just sharing my perspective and my thought process, but for the friends that have reached out, right, that are um, that are not of the African American descent, or people of color, I've told them to honestly just like educate yourself. It sounds simple, but like go back and understand, right, our history,
Yeah.
right, decades of history
Yeah.
from the country, right, and really like immerse yourself and understand that, like, um, and then reach out to other people, right, and get their opinion why they feel a certain way, right, because there's nothing better than to hear it from someone's perspective. I'm not saying their perspective is right, but at least it gives you, right, an idea of like, okay, I know the history now, I can kind of put those things together. But then also I always just tell people, like, just think about the thing that hurt you the most, right, that someone has said.
Yeah.
And then just think about, right, just decades of history, of that just continually to happen, like,
Yeah.
how would you feel?
Yeah.
So, and I know they're not always comparable, because someone's individual hurt, I never like to compare it to something else,
Yeah.
but I think that can give you at least a good foundation of like what it feels like to be a person of color right
Yeah.
now. You see these things happening,
Yeah.
so yeah, educate yourself, really immerse yourself, and really just try to get like a full picture, because I think sometimes we tend, even myself, like, to only see the picture the way we want to look at it,
Yeah.
right. So you have to just take that step, and really just look for or reach out, for as much information as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I always say to people, like, like, how would it, like, with the Rodney King situation, for example, like, how would you feel if you were a member of the same race and you're seeing someone
Yeah,
getting beaten up and then nothing happened to those police officers, um, and that's on video.
yeah,
And think about all the cases. So definitely that the point about history and putting that into perspective is a great point.
yeah.
So during your time at BC, you began the journey of dope
Yep.
in DPG.
Yeah, it's funny how it kind of unfolded. As every senior, right, kind of knows, like, the responsibility of a junior senior,
Yeah.
kind of the responsibility, the untold responsibility, I should say, of kind of managing the experience of college, right, aka parties, right. So it came to, and we certainly had some of the best, leaders in that retrospect, and also on the field, and all the above.
Yep.
Definitely had some guys that, were known to have a good time. So,
Yep.
um, it my class where I started, being involved in the social scene, and being an athlete at BC, as you know, right, you're connected to a lot of pockets of people.
Yep.
So, um, I was very fortunate enough to be friends with all sports teams, right, and once that senior had left and it was my time to be a junior, right, me and my junior class kind of took the responsibility of, really planning and making sure that, we welcomed the freshmen, not only just through partying, but just welcome them,
Yeah.
as much as possible. So,
Make it home. Yeah.
one example was just through, again, the nightlife of college. So,
Yeah.
there's obviously a lot of local bars, Wonder Bar, White Horse, Tavern in the Square,
Yep.
um, and so on. So, um, you know, we used to go when I was 21, and then built a relationship with the ownership group, and it turned into, hey, like I can bring some people for you because of the accessibility that I had through the connections with all the student athletes, and the non-student athletes as well, and
Yeah.
they're kind of kicked off, and I was actually very fortunate enough to meet some people along the way that showed me the ropes, that then kind of trickled down to some of the head guys in the city that kind of put everyone
Yeah.
onto this kind of playbook. And to be honest, the person that I kind of credit all of this to was Ace. His name's Ace Gershfield. Very been in the industry for 20 plus, I think 30 plus years, whatever the number is. And
Yeah.
he's been very, very successful. And
Yeah.
he definitely kind of took me under the wing. And through that, I just kind of ran with it. And
Yeah.
so I went out in the city all the time. I familiarized myself with the business aspect, which a lot of people just see the partying. It's like, there's actually some business processes that go to actually get people to come out
Yeah.
to the same places week after week,
Yeah.
right? So I just fell in love with it, and then from there I started my own company, and from there just kind of fostered into what it is today.
How soon did you go from, talking to some of the owners and things like that to actually being like, man, I should form a business entity?
I think it took the first couple events. When you're a college kid, um, during the spring, and just being given access to, not even like just being access to go out, skip the lines, right, and do all those things that we all like kind of uh, strive to get, right? Like it was like, okay, cool, like this is no brainer for me. And then as I was finishing my collegiate sports, soccer at BC, it kind of hit me. I was like, yeah, like this is, I want to do this. Like, and then I got a little bit of a taste of the actual like um, financial benefits of it, and
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, well, this is for me. Like, I want to do this. So, yeah, it definitely took two events,
Yeah.
but then it took obviously some process to actually have to create my own business entity.
Nice. How did I guess your family and friends um, like receive the news of you, starting your own company and things like that? Did you face any? I mean, I'm sure people said that's not a safe option and
Yeah.
things of that nature. And
Yeah, I mean, anytime you go against the norm of like what your family is used to, right? From kind of deviating from the 9 to 5 or what have you, you you're always going to get a little pushback, but nothing great comes easy, right? I am a very firm believer of that. And the first person I told was my brother. He helped me create the LLC, really just get a sense of like what it took to actually run a business. So after that, I you know, really just learned, right, and shadowed what the guys, again, Ace and his company, and Jeff and Dimitri, what they did, and some of these other guys that were very good in our industry, right? It's not just them. There's a lot of other folks that I took little pieces and created our own process that I think would cater to the college market, right? A market that a lot of folks tend to kind of leave out because of um, how up and down they sometimes can be when making plans to go out. So yeah, I wanted to do something different, and I definitely got some pushback just being in the nightlife space. It's not a common space that people like, hey, yeah, I want to go work in that business.
yeah,
But I think when you realize that it's marketing, it's sales, right? It's business process. Um, like it's the same thing that you're going for a marketing job. I'm
Yeah.
just doing it in a different space and vertical. So once I realized that, and once I saw um, the the financial right ability or gains from something like this, I just shut down the hate and the talk of being like, hey, look, that guy's a promoter. No, like I'm a business owner,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um yeah, definitely. It still happens to this day, but I tend not to worry about it because what a lot of people don't know, we're more than just nightlife, right? We actually are now engaging in, agency services, right? Marketing, social media. So nightlife has always just been an entry to everything else that we have going on the back end.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about that, and maybe educating all of us on you know how maybe a lot of these companies, whether they be bars or whatever event organizing companies, lack a social media presence and lack the ability to connect with you know the people that want to be involved.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think there's definitely obviously the event planning, right, was the initial thing to kind of tap into and get in front of, again, for us, the college market and really just the Gen Z millennial folks, because one, I think there's obviously a need for someone structured to create something fun, right? A a cool experience, right? Really. So that it's in itself, I just didn't see any other groups that were willing to kind of tap into that market. I saw a lot of folks catering into folks in the city, but yeah, I think from there it just kind of stemmed, and what we wanted to do was just kind of create a process. Like, how do we actually kind of think like a college student, right? And obviously, I had come from just being a college student,
Yeah.
understanding their buying habits, their spending habits, and also just like their financial like profile, right? And then really realizing, okay, well, okay, if I can create something that's appealing for them to come out, in return that they get a cheaper drink or whatever.
Yeah.
So started working with bars to think on that level,
Yeah.
which then allowed us to really create a process of how we get kids to come out, how we, monetize that, how we actually kind of scale it, and then that turned into bringing kids to the city, right? And figuring out the formula of how much does it cost for a cover when I have to factor in an Uber ride, and again, against that profile that it
Yeah.
built as that average college student. So there was a lot of thinking and processing, and then from there we tapped into the Boston crowd as well, the older crowd,
Yeah.
which kind of just diversified our portfolio of our clientele. And then really like the next step for us, which again a lot of people don't see, is
Yeah.
what we actually leveraged, right? That contact base,
Yeah.
right? So now we work with a lot of companies, right? Um, whether it be a liquor company or a hotel, right, to start throwing them events, right, because now we have a foothold of that clientele, whether it be the older clientele or the younger clientele, and there's, as you know, there's a lot of capital, right,
Yeah.
behind hotels and some of these big brands, not even just limited to liquor companies, but other brands that are trying to get in front of a college crowd, or maybe an older crowd. So we do a lot there. We also do a lot of social media. We're building our social media agency. We've just been doing one-off clientele, but now we're looking to actually kind of scale that out as its own kind of subsect of DPG under DPG marketing.
Yeah.
The consulting, right, we do on a day-to-day. We consult bars, we consult our agency clients as well. So that's another subsect of DPG. And then the talent division, naturally, as you work in nightlife,
Yeah.
you attract, in order to kind of attract a crowd, right, sometimes you need to get the people that they want to see on TV, right? Or the artists or whatever, and you get those. And, that in itself is another line for us, right? DPG talent. And connecting now that to maybe a hotel, right? That we're just kind of bridging the bridge to the talent, to those companies that we work with. So there's a lot of angles that, flow in between each other. They're all very distinct but synergistic like
Yeah.
divisions that work together that a lot of people just don't see.
Yeah.
Because I could tell you this much, working, if you were to just say, hey, I'm surviving on just nightlife, right? Like I wouldn't be able to have a team, and I wouldn't be able um, to rely, right? Because like
Yeah.
if I say, hey, Arnie, I need you to come out, and you don't come out, I
Yeah.
might not earn a paycheck, right?
Yeah.
So there's there's a lot of levels that or layers that people may not see kind of
Yeah.
behind the surface.
Yeah. Obviously, you're still in it, you're still young, but in these past couple of years, um, having done it, what has been some of the cool like lessons and I mean, I think that's the interesting thing about entrepreneurship that a lot of people don't realize is it teaches you a lot. Like, you might, I mean, obviously certain businesses will do well and some may not, but at the end of the day, that learning is just so priceless. Can you talk about maybe a couple lessons that have been like awesome to like learn, on the ground in the trenches?
Yeah, I think my biggest lesson is that you have to accept waking up, right, and grinding. Let's just call it 10 hours, right, a day,
Yeah.
and know that that 10 hours could maybe yield to nothing,
Yeah.
right? And you have to go to sleep that night and wake up knowing the next morning you have to do it again
Yeah.
and again and again and again. And that to me, right, taught me so much.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually got that quote from Kevin Hart, and I really just like I fell in love with it, because like if you really love what you do, right, it doesn't matter how much time you spend to it, right? Like you're going to figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah.
And so through that process, like I just immersed myself fully, and I just said, hey, look, I'm gonna go all in this, and I'm gonna do it to the full capacity. And that has been, probably the biggest takeaway. But it also taught me that business is very, very harsh, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's always someone that's essentially like that's kind of next up, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're not good today, you have to be worried about someone passing you. So, just like how sports, I was very competitive, being the best,
Yeah.
right? I essentially kind of create a goal, right? And I had to tell myself, if I don't do that, like this person's coming to take my lunch money, right? So
Yeah.
like I have to go, and I have
Every
to.
day thing. Yeah.
It's like a race within yourself. So that's the thing that I love, and that kind of correlated to sports for me, and why I go down the business route personally,
Yeah.
is that it's so competitive. And um, it's you're as good as your last game, and you're as good as your last performance in terms of nightlife, like the last party that you had. And the highs come with the highs, and the
Yeah.
lows come with the lows, but you kind of roll with them. So
What's the hardest thing about the business? I mean, obviously, event planning is, I'm sure, a lot of stress.
oh yeah, it's big time stress. It's big time stress.
All these
There's nothing
dominoes.
worse. Oh goodness gracious, yeah, I can. I don't know the pressure, right, from ownership, because at the end of the day they hire you,
Yeah.
right, to get a job done. They don't care. Like they don't sometimes they forget, right, that like we can't control people inherently. We can do our best, right? And we set certain parameters to try to make sure that they come in. But the pressure from the owners, right, our partners, and then just the pressure to make sure that the event is good for everybody, right? For 500 people, for 250 people, is definitely hard. And you have to really love customer service, for sure, to be in this space. But no, I think that has been the toughest thing. And sometimes what people don't realize, that like it's very expensive to provide, right, the top-notch experience, right? So, booking artists, and sometimes maybe an artist, doesn't come or doesn't show up on time, and then you have angry people, and then uh, so much back and forth.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll definitely say keeping yourself even, right, and making sure again you don't
Let the pressure
you don't
get.
ride yeah you don't ride the wave right with the highs too much, or you don't ride the waves with the lows too much, because it'll easily just spit you out right in the
Yeah.
nightlife game, because um, you know every day you hear, hey, the next promoter, the next promoter, the next promoter. So you definitely have to have tunnel vision,
Yeah.
and know where you want to be.
On the flip side, what's been like the best event you ever like coordinated, or what's been the most enjoyable, moment or moments, being in the business?
I think just sounds cliche, but just seeing people like leaving an event, just when you hear them be like, "Oh my God, I had the best time,"
Yeah.
right? And owners being like, "Wow, like that was the biggest night that we had,"
Yeah.
right? It's like, okay, well, no, I want to go top that,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I want to go provide the next best event. But honestly, if I had to look back at some of the parties that we've had, and we've thrown some amazing parties. To bucket one for the city, I would say, some of the, celebration parties for the Boston teams winning, right?
Yeah.
Some big games or championships
Yeah.
or what have you. Being part of that with the other teams that we worked with, or worked with us, has been probably the best. Like the Red Sox party when they won, the championship that year. When the Celtics, win big home games,
Yeah.
right? So I think those have been some of the best games in Bruins and so on. But
Yeah.
definitely that I would say the number one, those big celebration parties in the city. And then for college ones, I think some of these like the big at least for BC, like the big 100-day dance things, right? Where they're already in the city, and then you get them to come to one of the venues that you normally work at,
Yeah.
for the older crowd, and just give them a taste of like what Austin, like what essentially nightlife looks like outside of Austin,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's always a fun time, and always a great time for the kids as well.
Yeah. What is your vision for the next couple years? Or actually, before I get to that, talk to me about the quarantine, how that's affected your business and things like that. How are you pivoting and maybe innovating?
Yeah. With the nightlife and in-person experiences,
Yeah.
it's definitely taken a huge loss,
Yeah.
right? We went from probably having our biggest year, right? Most events, providing, the honestly, like the most revenue to our partners,
Yeah.
um, to nothing, right? In just a second, right? And that was obviously very, very hard. Again, for us, we're very fortunate that like we had been already planning to kind of have these distinct divisions, right, in motion. And so it's given us a lot of time to just really, double down in those areas, and which we're very fortunate about. And to be honest, kind of opened our eyes. We can't delay that process. So at least for the nightlife, what we've done is we've created what we call Cyber Club, right? It's essentially a online club, right? Where the goal was to emulate as much of Boston's experience from casino and, um, you know, uh, restaurant, whatever nightlife experience was. It was just, hey, bring that all. We're going to create a Zoom room with multiple different rooms in there. You have a club room. You have a casino room, right, where you could, do some light, fun games that would give you the same feeling as the casino does.
Yeah.
And then also just like a drinking room, right? Like a lot
Yeah.
of folks like to come drink, and
Yeah.
if we could do that and emulate that with strangers, you can meet new people. Obviously those other two rooms didn't work as the way we wanted them to, but what we've seen is definitely seen an increase. It's still a lot different. You can't really
Yeah.
emulate the nightlife experience
Yeah.
within a real bar or a real club.
Yeah.
But we've definitely seen, more traction, in the last couple of weeks with our cyber club. Um, people joining in, bringing something to drink and just, having a good time because I think more than ever, what COVID did was really take that away for a lot of people. And we wanted to give that back to the city. And, even bigger than that, we wanted to, the goal of Cyber Club for at least the venues was to,
Yeah.
raise as much money, right, to support them so we could open those places up sooner rather than later
Yeah.
when it was kind of cleared for us for those venues to open. So that was the goal of Cyber Club. We've raised some good money, and we've donated it. We've given back to our DJ community that have obviously been affected, and
Yeah.
and even now use that some of those funds to even now donate to the movements, BLM movements and organizations. So I feel really good that we can distribute it to our nightlife community and also to this larger movement that's going on in our country right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me about the vision of where you want to be in 2 years. I mean, obviously, once we get back to normal and you know things, events are happening and people are seeing each other. Um, where do you um, want the company to be and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I at least from a nightlife perspective, I want to be the go-to, entertainment and hospitality company within the Northeast region, right? And from there, right, like then it becomes okay, through the East Coast and so on, expanding, right? But and then for everything else, like we want to be, the company that can kind of really change right the mold of the traditional when you're starting off nightlife company, show our ability to pivot and go into different markets and use still our core business right as a way, as a foot in the door in some of these other areas um, that a lot of companies when you first start out don't think that you can be there. So
Yeah.
the goal is to be the best that we can be, honestly.
Yeah.
The best, we have our own individual metrics that we classify as the best, but every day is to strive, bring like-minded people to join our team, to really, again, as cliche as it sounds, just be the best that we can be within the space that we are working in, and be the best for our clients, be the best for our partners. So that's really the motto, is be the best, and it
Yeah.
comes from me wanting to be the best, and me wanting my team members to be the best, and they want to be the best themselves. So that's something that we always throw around in our group chats, is be the best.
Yeah.
So and everyone is always bought in around that idea. And the goal is to, this is really our motto, is elevate people's experience,
Yeah.
right? That's the goal from every single angle. So our vision is to elevate as many people's experience from a consumer to partners and so on.
Can you talk about, for someone that doesn't know too much about the company, um, like who are good people to reach out? What type of companies could use your services? Just elaborate a little bit more on, you know, how you can be of help to who and things like that.
Yeah. So on the nightlife perspective, from individual folks that are looking to plan events, we can certainly be of support. What I would say is really just understanding who you're working with within the nightlife space. Um, I think there's always a bad reputation around folks that do event planning, that they are out to kind of get you. So do your research, right? And understand that you know we're here to serve you, right? And for us, whether it be in an individual level, or a school or a corporate company. We plan events of all shapes, sizes, and so we have that experience. And then for everything else, right, in terms of the other divisions that we have, um, really it's all about folks that need marketing, that need consulting, that need connections to talent. So anything that kind of falls within marketing, promotions, events, activation, we can support, and we're here. And if you need us, reach out to me, reach out to anyone on my team. um, you can go to our website, dpgbrand.com, check us out. Our contact information is there. So without going into the weeds of
Yeah,
each
yeah.
one of those, I hope that kind of, answered your question.
Yeah, no, that helped. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about, Ado?
No, I think that summed it up. I love this. I loved connecting with you,
Yeah.
man. And this was awesome.
Yeah. No, thank you, Ado. I just want to acknowledge you. I think so many people in life don't go after their dreams, and so I think it's been awesome that you've taken this entrepreneurial journey, and now have like an 8-member team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
We have a management team, 5, include myself,
yeah.
then a promoting team of 20 plus.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which has been awesome. And, we're growing, and we're, adding, a few folks as we, again, build out the framework. And we actually have another partner joining in one of our corporate divisions. Yeah, the team's always growing.
Yeah. All this
I don't know
within 2 years, man. That's awesome.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
it's 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 amazing. And I've been very fortunate enough to have the folks around me, because without them, none of this would have been possible.
Yeah. So I just want to, acknowledge, um, you know, I'm glad that you're living, the life of your dreams, and you're not. And I hope that anybody else out there that has an entrepreneurial spirit, can maybe take some inspiration from Ado. Tell us a little bit about how. I know you mentioned it, but how can people find you, find the company, things of that nature?
Yeah, we're all over social. I'm sure you guys have probably seen our posts. You can find me on social, on Instagram, or on Facebook, at Dope Promotions, at Ado_Kawuba. Honestly, just reach out. If you post anything around, event planning or birthdays, I'm sure our team members will somehow find you if
Yeah.
you don't find us.
Yeah.
We're always scanning. So, yeah, you can reach us through social. Again, go to our website, dpgbrand.com. Emails, ado@dpgbrand.com. Yeah, contact us. We're here. We're open 24 hours a day. We don't sleep here. So contact us whenever, and we're always happy to help, whether we help you or connect you to someone that can help you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Ado.
Thank you, Arnie. Appreciate it, brother.
Appreciate it.